Hey, shalom. Welcome to our Listen and Learn lesson. Over here at Hebrew Literacy, we are continuing with our auditory learning through the book of Judges. May Adonai bless your learning and fill your heart with joy with the Hebrew language. Let's get started. We are in Judges chapter 1, verse 31. For this lesson, you can just close your eyes if you like, or you could look at your own Hebrew Bible. You don't have to look at the screen. It's good if you try to practice listening and hearing and trying to understand that way. I won't be writing on the screen or giving any kind of visual cues. All right, so it's really an auditory lesson. Okay, and it starts. Asher. Now this is not which, but it's the name. Asher. Asher. Now, Asher lo horiysh. Lo, not. Horiysh, from the verb yarash, which is to possess. This is a Hifil form. You can hear the hey at the beginning and the yod before the third root letter. Horiysh is to cause to possess or to dispossess. So Asher lo horiysh, did not dispossess, et yoshevey Akko. Et, we don't translate. Yoshevey. So this is from the verb yashav, to sit or to dwell. A yoshev is an inhabitant, right? It's a dweller. Yoshevim are inhabitants. Drop the mem, and that's how you say of. So yoshevim, inhabitants. Yoshevey, inhabitants of. And the next word is Akko. Since that word is a name, you might have actually been to this place in Israel. You can still go to Akko. You can even, I think you can take the train there north from Haifa. So because it's a name, that makes the whole construct chain definite. So we say the inhabitants of Akko. Let's do that again. Asher lo horish et yoshevey Akko. Asher lo horish, did not dispossess, et yoshevey Akko, the inhabitants of Akko. Ve'et yoshevey Sidon, or the yoshevey Sidon, the inhabitants of Sidon. Ve'et achlav, ve'et achziv, ve'et chelba, ve'et afik, ve'et rachov. So those are all places. I don't think we really need to go and translate all of that. So it's nor any of those places. Verse 32. Vayeshev ha'asheri beqerev ha'kenaani. Vayeshev. So yeshiv, again, is from yashav. Yeshiv is an imperfect form. It means he will dwell or he will sit. And we have a vav conversive before that that changes the aspect. So yeshiv is he is sitting or he will sit. He is dwelling or he will dwell. Vayeshev, there's a dagesh in the yod, so it follows that pattern we discussed recently with a vav and a patach, that's a little ah sound, and the dagesh in the next letter. It's following that vav consecutive formula. Vayeshev ha the asheri, the Asherites. So the Asherites, yeshiv, dwelled. Vayeshev ha asheri. It almost sounds like French. Oh, mon chéri. Then the Asherites dwelled. Be, it's a beit. Beqerev. Beit, kof, resh, beit. Kerev means, it's a synonym to toch or tawach, like midst, in the middle. Kerev can also be the innards of an animal or a person, the kerev, right? The kishki. So beqerev, in midst of ha-kenaani, the Canaanites. So because we have a construct chain, kerev ha-kina'ani, it becomes the midst. So be, and then we have to say the kerev, ha-kina'ani, in the midst of the Canaanites. Yoshevey haaretz. Yoshevey haaretz, the inhabitants of the land. Again, from Yoshevim, inhabitants, drop the mem, inhabitants of, and because that last word in the chain has a ha on it, a the, it makes the whole chain the. So because it's haaretz, the land, we get the inhabitants of the land. Now, I can't remember. I read a modern commentary. Oh, I think it's by Sasson. Yeah, I can't remember his first. I think it's Sasson. Joy in Hebrew. Last name Sasson. Can't remember the first name. And he points out that this is the term, when you read the inhabitants of the land, it implies that they are the major settlers in the land, like the majority. So beyond even Asher is seemingly implied by the text here. Vayeshev ha'asheri, so the Asherites dwelled beqerev ha'kenaani, in the midst or the middle of the Canaanites. Yoshevey haaretz, the inhabitants of the land. Ki lo horiysh, ki lo horiysh, for not he dispossessed him. For not he dispossessed him. Ki lo horiysh, for he did not possess him, dispossess him. And of course, we would say them in English to make it sound more correct. So at the end of verse 32, we have a satum, which is marking the end of a section. So I'm just going to read at a more brisk pace now, and I will not translate verse 31 and verse 32. Asher lo horiysh et yoshevey Akko, ve'et yoshevey Tzidon, ve'et Achlav, ve'et Achziv, ve'et Chelba, ve'et Afik, ve'et Rechov. 32. Vayeshev ha'asheri beqerev ha'kenaani, yoshevei haaretz, ki lo horiysh. Verse 33. Naphtali lo horiysh. Naphtali, of course, that's the name of a tribe. Lo, not, horiysh, did not dispossess. Et yoshevei veyeshev. Yoshevei veyeshev, the inhabitants of Beth Shemesh, house of the sun, is what that means, or house of sun. Ve'et, nor yoshevei veit anaf. Ve'et yoshevei veit anaf, nor the inhabitants of Beth Anaf. Vayeshev beqerev hakenaani. So he dwelled in the midst of the Canaanites, yoshevei haaretz, the inhabitants of the land. So again, it seems like the Canaanites are still the majority settlers, even in Naphtali's region. Verse 33 continues, V'yoshevei veit shemesh uveit anath hayu lahem lamas. Again, but yoshevei veit shemesh uveit anath, the inhabitants of Beth Shemesh and Beth Anath, hayu. Hayu is from the verb hayah. When you have an u at the end of the verb, that tells you it's they. So hayah is he was. That's the lexical form, the way that we look up verbs in a lexicon or in a dictionary. It's a third person masculine singular perfect. Hayah, he was. Hayu is they were. They were lahem, for them. Now remember, we have a Hebrew idiom. When you have hayah plus lamed, that can mean, it doesn't have to, but it can mean became. So you could also translate hayu lahem, they became for them. lamas. La. The lamed is for. Is the. Mas. Forced labor. We'll read verse 33 again. This time, I won't translate. Naphtali lo horiysh et yoshevey veyeshev ve'et yoshevey vaylechatsu vayeshev beqerev hakinaani yoshevey haaretz veyoshevey veyeshev uvaylechatsu hayu lahem lamas. And we have a satum, so we are at the end of the section there again. Now for verse 34. All right. Continue with verse 34. Vaylechatsu. Vaylechatsu. The verb is lachatz. And it's interesting, we have a derivative from this, which also is lachatz, which is one of the words in Hebrew that maps into the Septuagint Greek as thlipsis, Greek thlipsis, which is tribulation, as in the Great Tribulation. So just kind of an interesting note there. So lachatz, the verb itself means to push someone, like to push them into a corner. Metaphorically, it can be to oppress, to torment. So the yod at the beginning tells us it's third person, and the u at the end says it's they. So yilchatsu is they will oppress, or they are oppressing, or they are pushing someone like into a corner or somewhere. They will do it. It's an imperfect, but the vav is going to change all of that. Vayilchatsu. So they pushed, or they oppressed, they drove. Who did? Ha'emori. Ha'emori, the Amorites. The Amorites pushed et bnei Dan, or Dan. Vayilchatsu ha'emori et bnei Dan. But the Amorites pushed the children of Dan. And note we say the children because it's a construct chain, and the last word in the chain is a name, and a name is definite. So it imparts the word the to the other word in the chain, in this case, b'nei, from banim, meaning children. Vayilchatsu ha'emori et b'nei Dan. But the Amorites pushed the children of Dan, or Dan as we say in English, haharah. Ha-har-ah. So we have a few things happening here in this word. The main noun is har, which is one of our 60-second vocabulary words. Har means mountain. The mountain is ha-har, ha-har. And then there's a hey at the end also. That's the hey locative. It tells you the direction. You might remember me talking about Jerusalem. We say Yerushalayim. But if you say, let's go up to Jerusalem, we say, Na'ale Yerushalayim ma. There's an at the end. It's direction towards Jerusalem. Often when you have verbs of motion in Hebrew, the place you're going to will have an at the end. You'll even see this sometimes. Someone will prostrate down with his face. Artsa. So eretz is land or ground. Artsa is towards the ground, right? Facing toward the ground. It just depends. Some scribes and prophets don't use the locative in later biblical Hebrew, but in Judges, we're still pretty close to Torah Hebrew here, so it's still happening. Vayilchatsu ha'emori et b'nei Dan haharah. But the Amorites, yilchatsu, oppressed or pushed, et b'nei Dan, the children of Dan, haharah, towards the mountain. Ki lo netano or netano, ki lo, for, F-O-R, it's kaf yod if you're just listening, for not, ki lo, for not, netano, netano. So the verb is pretty clear. It's natan. Natan means he gave. And then the O at the end means him. So ki lo netano, for he did not give him, or was not given to him, laredet la'imet. Laredet. Not Reddit, the website. This is a little bit convoluted if you're not used to this verb. The verb is a pei yod verb, meaning it starts with a yod. It's yarad, yarad, yod resh dalet, which means to descend, to go down. In modern Hebrew, it can mean to go work abroad, right? When you immigrate to Israel, you make aliyah, you go up. It's a going up, right? Immigration is a going up. When you leave the country, like to be an OFW worker, an overseas worker, it's going down. It's a yarad, marking a spiritual descent, leaving the Holy Land. So this is the infinitive. The yod is just gone. We put the lamed in the front for to, like English infinitives. To descend, to go down, laredet. So ki lo, for not, netano, it was given, laredet, to descend. And by the way, it's there are some variances in the manuscript for netano. Other texts have netanum, for not given to them. Laredet, to go down, la'imek, la'imek. The noun is aimek, ayin, mem, kof. Ayin, mem, kof. So this is like the lowland, the lower area, right? The place where it's good to do farming. So la, the lamed is to, the is the, and then aimek, to the lowland. This is not good for the children of Dan, because, well, it's an agrarian society. I'm not sure they could grow too much up in the mountain top. And I read that opinion somewhere, and I'm sorry, I can't remember who the scholar mentioned it, but I don't think that's too hard to deduce because the text is pointing it out. All right, so just let me repeat verse 34. Let's try to translate it as I go along, all right? Vaylechatsu ha'emori et b'nei Dan. But the Amorites pushed, tormented, oppressed, et b'nei Dan, haharah, to the mountain. And this could mean like a mountain range, a series of mountains. Ki lo netano, or some texts say ki lo netanum, for was not given to him, or was not given to them, not permitted, really is what it's saying. Laredet, la'imek, laredet, to descend, to go down, la'imek, to the aimek, like lower area, the flatlands, the valley, la'imek. Okay, making decent time today. We're just about 20 minutes in. Okay, verse 35. We have two more verses to get through, and we'll be done with the chapter. Verse 35. Vayoel ha'emori lashevet. Vayoel ha'emori lashevet. Now the verb we have here, the root of vayoel, it's yod, aleph, lamed. And it's kind of hard to recognize. This is a Hifil form. And it's like to be willing or to be resolved to accept and to make something happen. It can mean like to decide. So vayoel, yoel is he will be willing or he will be resolved. And then the vav changes that, vayoel. Who? Ha emori. Now the Amorites were resolved lashevet. Lashevet. Now, this is another example of a pay yod verb. That means a verb that starts with a yod. One of its first radical, its first root letter is a yod. So just like in the previous verse, we had the verb yarad, to descend. In the infinitive form, the yod is gone, and we end with a tav. We had a tav. So yarad is descend, like he descended. Laredet is to descend. This verb, lashevet, is from yashav. Yashav, to sit or to dwell. One of our Hebrew words of the day. So just like yarad follows the pattern laredet, yashav follows the pattern lashevet. So vayoel ha'emori lashevet. Now the Amorite was determined lashevet, to dwell. Be'ha-cheres, at Mount Cheres. Be'ayalon, at Ayalon. Ayalon, you not alone. Yes, I alone. Sorry. Uve sha'alvim, and at sha'alvim. Okay, let's read that again. Vayoel ha'emori lashevet. Now the Amorite was determined to dwell behar cheres, be'ayalon, ve'sha'alvim. Vatikbad, vatikbad. The verb is kaf, bet, dalet. It's like it's related to kaved, to be heavy, right? To be heavy, to weigh heavily on. Vatikbad. Now the tav at the beginning tells us it's either you will be heavy or weigh heavily upon, or be too heavy for, depending on how it's used, or it can even be honored, or it's she will be. Tichbad, she will be heavy, too heavy, weighty, or honored. So the next word is yad. Yad. And yad oftentimes does turn out to be feminine. A lot of body parts are, even though it doesn't seem like it's feminine. So vatichbad, yad, beit Yosef. Now the yad, beit Yosef. That's a big construct chain. Yad, beit Yosef. Because Yosef is a name that makes those other two words need the word the in English translation. So vatichbad now was heavy. Yad beit Yosef, the hand of the house of Joseph, like their power, their authority. That's the yad, the hand. Vayishyu lamas. Vayishyu. The verb is hayah. He was, or followed by lamed, to become. Yihyu means he will be, they will be. The with the end means it's they will be. The vav changes the aspect. Vayihyu, so they were, lamas, for the forced labor, or they became forced labor. So vatichbad yad beit Yosef, but the hand of the house of Joseph weighed heavily. Vayichyu lamas, so they became, not they, house of Joseph, but the Amorites, forced labor. Lamas, hayah plus lamed, to become. Right? I'm going to read verse 35 again. Try to translate it before I tell you what it means. I won't translate the place names. Vayoel ha'emori lashevet. Vayoel ha'emori. Now the Amorite was willing or determined lashevet, to dwell be'ha-cheres, at ha-cheres, be'ayalon, at ayalon, uve-sha'alvim, and at sha'alvim. Vatichbad yad beit Yosef, but the hand or the power of the house of Joseph was heavy, weighed heavily. Vayihu, so that Yihyu la became amas, the forced labor. Vayihu lamas, so that they became a forced labor force, or yeah, a mass. Remember, Catholic mass might feel like labor for some of you. And then finally, verse 36. Ugevol ha'emori. Ugevol ha'emori. So, gevul is a border. It's a border. And it's just an u instead of a normal vav in front of it because we have a schwa under the gimel. I don't know if you hear it. Gevul. Gevul. It is in a construct state. So, gevul ha'emori means the border of the Amorites. And we have an u at the front, so that's a vav. Now, the Amorite border, or the border of the Amorite, mima'ale akrabim. Now, even though this mima'ale, it says from above, this is actually part of the place name. Okay, so the region is mima'ale akrabim, from above the scorpions. That's what that means. Mehasela, from the cliff. Va ma'ala. Va ma'ala. And ma'ala. It's from the word ma'al. Ma'al, which is upwards and higher. So verse 36 again. Ugevul ha'emori. Now the border of the Amorite. Mi ma'ale akabim. Mi, meaning from. Ma'ale. Ma'ale, again, is like the higher region, the region above. Right? Like directly above. Akabim. Ayin. The ayin there, and the kof, and the resh, and the beit is how you say scorpion. So a place called Scorpions. Me ha selah. Me, from ha, the selah, cliff. But that's a name. It's just the name of it happens to be like a big rock, like cliff. Selah. Selah could be like a rock that's just by itself, like a big rock, or like a rocky crag, or like cliffs, like I said. So probably cliff or cliffs. And then the last word is the ma'la, the ma'la, and above, and higher. And then we have a pay, which marks the. Now I'm just going to read through it all one more time, and you try to translate it, okay? Or at least try to understand a lot of it. It's good if you get like 70% of it. I will read at a medium pace. Judges chapter 1, verse 31. Asher lo horiysh et yoshevey Akko, ve'et yoshevey Sidon, ve'et Achlav, ve'et Achziv, ve'et Chelba, ve'et Afik, ve'et Rachov. 32. Vayeshev ha'asheri beqerev ha'kenaani, yoshevey ha'aretz. Ki lo horisho. 33. Naphtali lo horish et yoshevey veit shemesh, ve'et yoshevey veit anath, vayeshev beqerev ha'kenaani, yoshevey ha'aretz, veyoshevey veit shemesh uveit anath, hayu lahem lamas. They became for them mas, for a labor force. Hayu lahem lamas. Next section, verse 34. Vaylechatsu ha'emori et bnei Dan, or bnei Dan. Haharah, towards the mountain. Haharah. Ki lo netano, or some texts say netanum, from Natan. Ki lo netano laredet, from yarad, to descend. Laredet la'emek. Ki lo netano laredet la'emek. 35. Vayoel ha'emori lashevet behaharah be'ayalon uvesha'alvim vatikbad yad beit Yosef. Vatikbad, but was heavy, yad beit Yosef. Vayihyu lamas. 36. Ugevol ha'emori mima'ale ha'akrabim mehasela v'ma'ala. One more time. Speedy now. Not fast, not fast, but speedier. Just try to listen. Don't try to think in English or in your native language now. Just try to understand. Just let it go right to your mind. I won't announce the verse numbers. Starting with verse 31, though. Asher lo horiysh et yoshevey Akko, ve'et yoshevey Tzidon, ve'et Achlav, ve'et Achziv, ve'et Chelba, ve'et Afik, ve'et Rechov, vayeshev ha'asheri beqerev ha'kenaani, yoshevey ha'aretz, ki lo horisho. Naphtali lo horiysh et yoshevey veit shemesh, ve'et yoshevey veit anath, vayeshev beqerev ha'kenaani, yoshevey ha'aretz. ויושבי בית שמש ובית ענת hayu lahem lamas. hayu lahem lamas. vaylechatsu ha'emori et bnei Dan. haharah. כי לא נתנו לרדת לעמק. vayoel ha'emori lashevet בהרס באיילון ובשעלבים vatikbad yad beit Yosef vayihyu lamas. ugevol ha'emori mima'ale akrabim mehasela v'ma'ala. Shalom, shalom. Catch you guys tomorrow for our directed immersion in the Torah.